June 8th, 793 A.D. On the northeast coast of England, on the island of Lindisfarne, monks were reciting their morning prayers. The monastery was one of Christianity's holiest sites in England. Monks copied manuscripts, worked in gardens, listened to the calm sound of the sea. Then something appeared on the horizon. At first they thought they were fishing boats, but as they approached, they realized these were different. Long, narrow ships with dragon heads, oars moving in synchronized rhythm. And the men on the ships were armed. They were Vikings. Within hours, Lindisfarne Monastery was destroyed. Monks were killed. Golden crosses, jeweled gospels, sacred relics were plundered. Survivors were taken as slaves. Europe was shocked. How could God's house be so savagely attacked? This was the beginning of the Viking Age. For the next 300 years, Scandinavian warriors, traders, and explorers reached every corner of the known world. They conquered England, terrorized France, sailed Russia's rivers, settled Iceland and Greenland, and, in a way no one could have imagined, set foot in North America. 500 years before Columbus. This is not just the story of raids. This is the story of the world's greatest sailors, the boldest explorers, and one of the most complex societies in history. To understand the Vikings is to understand medieval Europe, because the mark they left is still felt today. The Viking Age began for many reasons. First, the Scandinavian peninsula was harsh. Northern Norway had short summers and long winters, little arable land. The population was growing, but resources were limited. Younger sons inherited nothing. They had to seek their fortune elsewhere. Second, ship technology. Scandinavians had built the world's best ships, the longship, suitable for shallow water, capable of moving with both oars and sails, fast, agile, and seaworthy. With these ships, they could approach coasts, raid quickly, and escape after plundering. Third, political chaos in Europe. The Carolingian Empire had divided. England was split into small kingdoms. There was no centralized defense, easy targets for Vikings. Fourth, culture and religion. Viking religion, Norse paganism, glorified warfare. The way to Valhalla, the heaven of the glorious dead, was through death in battle. They worshipped Odin, Thor, and Freya, and the world awaited exploration. When these four factors combined, Scandinavian warriors set out to sea. The heart of Viking power was the ship. The longship was not just transport. It was a work of art. Usually made of oak, 20 to 30 meters long, 5 meters wide, it could hold 30 to 60 oarsmen. It had a sail, but if there was no wind, it was rowed. Most important feature, shallow draft. The longship's draft was only about 1 meter. This meant it could navigate large rivers, reach coasts, even beaches. A Viking fleet could suddenly appear where no one expected them. The bow and stern were usually carved in dragon or serpent shapes to frighten enemies and ward off evil spirits. Inside, oarsmen, warriors, food, weapons, and sometimes entire families traveled. During long voyages, they camped on shore. In the 1880s, the Gokstad ship and Oseberg ship were found in Norway, perfectly preserved Viking vessels. Today, they're displayed in Oslo's Viking Ship Museum. Studying these ships reveals just how advanced Viking engineering was. After Lindisfarne, the raids could not be stopped. In 865, the great heathen army invaded England. Thousands of Viking warriors. They took York, renamed it Jorvik. The kingdoms of East Anglia and Northumbria fell. Only Wessex resisted under King Alfred. But half of England fell under Viking control, the Danelaw region. In 845, the legendary Ragnar Lothbrok attacked Paris from the Seine River. He besieged the city. King Charles of France paid Ragnar 7,000 pounds of silver to leave Paris. tribute called Dangeld. This system spread, pay the Vikings not to attack. In 911, King Charles gave Viking leader Rollo the region of Normandy. Rollo made it a Viking settlement, and Normandy later became the homeland of William the Conqueror, who would take England in 1066. In Ireland, Dublin was founded by Vikings in 841. It became a major Viking trading center. Even today, Dublin's name comes from Old Norse. Some Vikings even crossed the Strait of Gibraltar, raiding Spain, Morocco, and reaching Italy. Vikings were not only warriors, but history's greatest sailors and explorers. In 874, Norwegian settlers fled to Iceland to escape King Harald Fairhair's oppression. They found the island nearly empty, just a few Irish monks. Viking settlers colonized Iceland. In 930, they established the Althing, one of the world's oldest parliaments. In 982, Eric the Red was exiled from Norway for murder. He went to Iceland, got into more trouble, and was exiled again. He sailed west and discovered a giant glacial island. He named it Greenland, probably to attract settlers. Though mostly ice-covered, it had coastal pastures. Eric and his family settled, and thousands of Vikings followed. Around 1000, Eric's son, Leif Erikson, sailed even further west from Greenland. He reached the shores of present-day Newfoundland, Canada. He saw grapevines, or thought he did, and named the place Vinland, Wineland. In 1960, Viking settlement remains were found at L'Anse aux Meadows in Newfoundland. This proved Vikings reached America 500 years before Columbus, but colonization wasn't permanent. Conflicts with indigenous peoples, small numbers, and distance led them to abandon it after a few years. To see Vikings only as raiders is a mistake. Viking society was complex. Social structure included jarls, nobles, wealthy landowners and leaders, carls, free people, farmers, traders, craftsmen, and thralls. Women had strong roles in Viking society. They could own property, divorce, and trade. Some women were warriors. The Shield Maiden legends may be real. Recent archaeological evidence suggests some Viking warrior graves contain female remains. Religion. Norse paganism was a rich mythology. Odin, god of wisdom and war. Thor, god of thunder. Freya, goddess of love and war. Loki, trickster god. Valhalla was where warriors who died in battle went. Ragnarok was the legend of the world's end. Rune writing. Vikings had their own alphabet, Futhark. Runes carved on stones, wood, and weapons are still found throughout Scandinavia today. Vikings were also traders, dealing in furs, honey, slaves, and weapons. Their trade networks reached Byzantium and the Middle East. By the mid-11th century, Viking raids had decreased. Why? First, Christianization. Scandinavia converted to Christianity. Denmark first, then Norway, then Sweden. Christian kings suppressed the old pagan raiding culture. Second, central kingdoms grew stronger. England, France, and other European kingdoms were no longer defenseless. Castles, walls, and regular armies appeared. Third, assimilation. Many Vikings, like those in Normandy, integrated into the lands they'd settled. They were no longer raiders, but residents. Fourth, internal conflicts. Scandinavia faced succession wars. Resources were spent internally, not on external raids. 1066 marks the symbolic end of the Viking Age. Harald Hardrada, king of Norway and the last great Viking leader, fought for the English throne. He was killed at the Battle of Stamford Bridge. That same year, William of Normandy, of Viking descent, conquered England, but as a Norman duke, not a Viking. The Viking legacy is immense. Hundreds of modern English words come from Old Norse: sky, egg, knife, window, husband. In northern England, Scotland, and Ireland, Viking origins are still visible. Iceland, Denmark, Norway, and Sweden, today among the world's most developed and happiest countries, carry Viking heritage directly. Their democratic traditions trace back to the Viking Thing assemblies. But perhaps the most important legacy is the spirit of exploration. The Vikings' courage to set sail into the unknown, their determination to overcome obstacles, these are the foundations of humanity's greatest discoveries. The Viking Age ended over 900 years ago, but its spirit never died. Every time humans dare to explore the unknown, every time we push beyond familiar horizons, we echo the Vikings who once sailed into the mist, not knowing what lay ahead, but sailing anyway, watching the past to understand the present. And together we keep history alive. I'll see you in the next era.